Okay, people, let's get into the cool stuff. I think we have enough background information here to start actually getting into changing the web page. So here's just a little toy app that I made for, no pun intended, the toy application that I made for working on for my kids, so they have 4 billion stuffed animals. So sort of someplace they could add a creature's name and you know, Panko the penguin, add a creature, and they can view their creatures. Okay, so I just needed a web page to play with, so something I was working on recently. So if you're not familiar with it, the every web page has what they call a console, and you're going to get there. There's a couple different ways to get there, but here on a PC you do just F12. You can get there. Or here on my particular Mac, I have to do function F12, and it takes me here. Um, you can do Alt Command I gets you here also. So you want to get this up here where it says console. This is what I'm looking for. In your JavaScript code, when you do console log, this is where it shows up in the console, right? So just in case you haven't seen this before, I know some people who are doing this have very little JavaScript experience, so you may not have seen this before. You can see if you click on this elements, it shows you the structure of the page, right? So the DOM, what's the DOM? We hear this thing, the DOM, and manipulating the DOM, traversing the DOM. The DOM is an acronym that stands for Document Object Model. It's an object, right? The document object. The document means the web page or the file that represents the web page. So we're going to manipulate the document object. So remember that an object is sort of like a tree, right? You have one item, and then you use the dot notation to get to the things that are inside it, and those can contain other things like other objects. So if you had, let's do a quick review over here. Let's go over here and I'll show you. If I can go, this is just a terminal. Since I have Node installed, I can use this just like we were using that website, the REPL website. It's basically the same thing. So let's create a new object, literal. Let's do name, Alex, age, 48, cool, equals a boolean of true. Totally stealing that from West Boss. Okay. So now let's say, do you remember how to get the name? All right. You do my object dot name, right? So now let's say what else can we add here? Besides this, there could be other objects in there. There could be arrays in there. There could be all kinds of stuff. So if we want to add a new property to this object, we just type it in, right? My object dot nested equals a new object, and let's say last name Nielsen. So now let's see what my object looks like now. Okay, so name Alex, age 48, cool, true, nested equals, look at that, it's another whole other object right inside my object. Right? See how that's another object inside? Got the curly brackets with a property and a value. So how do you think you're going to get my last name out of there? My object, same way we got the first one out. We just got to keep adding the dots. My object dot nested. Well, what does that give us? Let's just find out. It gives us the whole object, but we just want the value of the last. So we say my object dot nested dot, what do you think? Last, and that gives us just the value. So it's like a tree. You can keep having branches, okay? That can go on indefinitely. Object inside of an object inside of an object, and it could be an array in there with an array of objects, and it could be anything, okay? It's very flexible. So if you take a look at this, your web page here, your HTML, you may notice that it looks a lot like a tree too, right? Okay, so you have the HTML, and inside of that we have the head and the body. Okay, inside of, let's take a look at the head real quick. Inside of the head, so the head is like an object inside of the main object, right? The document object. The first object inside, we're storing a bunch of objects in it. The first object is the head object, and it's got all these properties. Okay, so let's look at the body. So remember, you got the document object, which is the whole page. Then you've got, inside that, we had the head object and the body object. The body object has a bunch of other objects. All right, so they're all nested, just like we were talking about. So let's take a look at this one. The main class, you should recognize this. This is straight from our HTML. The main has other HTML elements inside of it, right? And look, here's yet another one inside of it. It's nested and nested and nested. But look, let's just look at the whole main area there. So if it's an object, like I keep saying, and we said it's in the document, and the object inside of that is the head and the body, and the object inside of the body is the main, how do you think we're going to get to access to that? Well, think about it. Document, body, main, right? So we can go to the console, and let's clear this stuff out of here. So what if we go document dot body dot main? What does that give us? That gives us undefined. Why is that? Okay, it's not quite that simple. I wish it was that simple. But let's see what we give it document. Okay, here's the whole document. Document. There it is. So let's see. So can we get it that way? Can we say document dot body? Yeah, we can get that. So why can't we get document body dot main? Nope, doesn't work that way. So here's how you get it. The document has a bunch of built-in methods. Remember, it's an object. It can have functions stored on it. And when a function is stored on an object, we call it a method. So one of the methods is a query selector. The selector, remember from CSS, we call when you target something, it's called the selector. Like if you want to get the main here, you can target just the element itself. You can target it by ID or by class. Same thing, exact same thing here. So document, I'm going to do the method, is called query selector. And in this case, the selector we want to use is the main. So we're talking about the main element, this element, not like not a class name or anything, the actual element main. Okay? So it returned, what did it return? The whole thing, everything that was in there, including all the HTML elements inside of it. Okay? So now we have access. We figured out how to get access to that thing. Let's so we don't have to keep typing document query selector main every time. What you can do is we can say let my main equal document dot query now when we get my main, it gives it to us without having to write the, it's just a shortcut so we don't have to type the whole query selector thing out. So now we have access to the same exact thing, we're just calling it by my main. Let's clear this out a little bit. Now, my main. What do we want to do with it now? So we have access to it. We have this access to this main area. Well, we can do a lot of stuff with it from here. How about if we wanted to change the style? We can do that. Well, let's see. If I type that, what does that give me? Okay, so it tells us a whole bunch of stuff about the styles that are already applied to it. If we expand this, whoa, what is all that? Holy cow. Guess what? With CSS, whether or not, even though we didn't apply too many styles to it, guess what? It needs to keep track of all the possible styles. It needs to know whether we did anything or not to it, right? So all these, look, they're all blank. That means we didn't do any, we didn't assign anything to any of these. But the browser needs to know all this information. Let's see, was there one that we actually did apply some style to? There's got to be something that we applied some kind of style to with this, I would think. Or are they all on the child elements? Could be that all the styles were on the child elements inside of here, and we're just using it as a place in the file, at a sort of an anchor, so to speak. But at any rate, so we can change some of these things. What if we wanted to change the background color? That's an option here. Here it is, background color. Well, here's how you're going to do it. Just like in here, when we said we wanted to add something to the object, we just go ahead and assign it. MyObject.nested equals whatever we want to do. Same exact thing here, because remember, this whole thing is an object. Remember that term, document object? So we're in a big object here. So we can say, we don't have to type the whole document query selector anymore. Sorry about the planes. I'm actually sitting at the airport. Crazy. All right, my main.style equals. Actually, I don't think that's what we do. Let's see what happens. Equals, because we don't want to change the whole. We can't change the whole thing. We just want to change that background. So we go like this. Nope, that wasn't it. How do I do this? I forget already. There we go. So that's pretty cool, right? Like, this is some page that, I wrote over here, and so just to be clear, this didn't change my my file. It only changed what is loaded into the browser. Okay? If we go over to my text editor, which still happens to have this open, or I think is this actually, okay? Didn't change this file at all. Nothing changed here. Nothing changed in my style over here. Totally just changed what is stored in the browser. Okay, so now if I did this command again, my main.style, that background color should have changed. Background color blue. There you go. Look at that. Before it was blank, I think, or it certainly wasn't blue. So let's try this. Will we change it to? Oops. No, I don't want that. Not interested in your updates. Let's change it to red. Okay, and then let's look at this. Background color is now red. Okay, so again, this is just to be clear. We're not changing the code that I wrote and that's being served up. We're only changing the code that's already in the browser. And we're changing it the same way we changed an object over here. We just wanted to add something to it. We just go ahead and say what it's called and add that value to it. Okay. Yeah. So this is pretty powerful. I'm going to stop right there because this video is probably getting a little bit long. And in the next video, we'll talk about let's talk about events next. If you don't know what I mean by that, get ready for a cool episode. All right.